Good morning. Are there any public speakers? We've got a lot of feedback on this microphone.
There are no public speakers.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from last time? Second? All in favor? Any changes to the committee work plan this week?
No changes.
Okay. Howard, operations report.
Thank you. On the subway absolute on-time performance results for February 2009 were as follows. The system was 79.5, which was down 0.9% from January. On the A division, on-time performance was 75%, down 5.4% in January. And on the B division, on-time performance, this is absolute. All these are absolute. Was 83.1, up 2.7% from January. On the controllable side, system-wide OTP was 87.1%, down 0.6% from January. A division was 84.2, which was down 2.1%, and B division was 89.5%, up 0.7% from January. At the last meeting, Chairman Hemmedinger asked us to provide some comparisons with respect to on-time performance and mean distance between failure with other systems. Now, part of the problem with on-time performance is that about half the systems do not report terminal on-time performance. Some of them use headway adherence, which is like our weight assessment, and then there are systems, Chicago being a notable example, that simply do not, they report trips completed, but they don't report on-time performance at all. The ones, and these are again apples to oranges, but SEPTA reports 98.6%, MARTA 95.4%, WMATA 93.5%, Barton San Francisco 92%. Those compare to the New York City Transit reporting controllable of 87.6% and absolute of 80.2%. There were 30,790 delays in February, with overcrowding, which is made up of people holding doors under crowded conditions, and slow signals that are simply because of congestion with no incident causing the signals. It's simply the fact that we're running at peak capacity, and the slightest hiccup on the system can cause a problem. Supplemental schedules and work gangs were number 2 and number 3 as the most frequent cause of delays on the system. Results for subway weight assessment show improvement. System-wide weight assessment was 88.5% in February, up 3% from last year. Results for the A division increased by 5.4%, while the B division was up by 2.2%. For the 12-month average, weight assessment was 87% system-wide, an improvement of 1.3% from a year ago. The A and B divisions were both up by 2.4% and 0.8% respectively from last year. In February, mean distance between failure was 138,178 miles, down 2% from 140,000 a year ago. The 138,000 compares in the projections, which we gave you at the first of the year. 148,900 was our best projection. Our most likely was 134, and our worst was 111. That means we're tracking between most likely and best at this point in time. The 12-month average was 133,325, which was down 10% from last year. During February, the 4 car classes that are being replaced by new R160 cars had a combined mean distance between failure of only 59,000 miles. These 4 classes accounted for 25% of all failures during the month, with only 11% of fleet mileage. In contrast, the new R160s achieved a mean distance between failure of 1,175,000 miles. For this reason, we remain confident that as R160 deliveries continue during the year, subway mean distance between failure will turn upward. Now, I'm trying to advance the reporting of mean distance between failure, but we have the March results, but not in time to get them in the book. The March number was very good. It was 150,126 miles compared to 144,737 a year ago. That's the first time in a long time that we've actually beaten the previous month from a year ago. The 150 compares to 160,000 best, 144 most likely, and 120,000 worst as far as the projections are compared.
Howard, just one quick question. I noticed in addition to the 4 car classes that we're going to be replacing, the 142s were down a bit as well. Was that ongoing problem we're fixing with doors? And
the 142s we continue to have problems with, and those are glitches that are showing up that essentially on a item-by-item basis have to be addressed by engineering.
Both the Bombardier and
Yes.
Amazon?
In terms of U.S. comparisons, New York City Transit, even at 133,546, continues to lead the nation, although the gap is closing because SEPTA is at 131,000. After that, San Francisco is 93,000, Toronto is 74, Washington is 47, and Boston is 39,000. So,
Howard, on those figures, isn't it somewhat comparing apples to oranges because, SEPTA has 2 lines and, there's so much less fleet in those other cities that I'm just wondering if that's even a valid comparison.
It is in the sense that if you think about it as car fleets, it's probably a relatively fair comparison. In terms of duty cycle, I think it is not, because they simply I know the Philadelphia duty cycle very well, and it does not compare particularly with door incidents and things like that with New York City. Buses overall performance continues to be strong. Weekday pull-out performance was 99.8% or better for both the AM and PM peaks for both the month of February and the 12-month average. Similarly, completed trips averaged 99.1% in February and 98.8% for the last 12 months, in both cases increasing slightly from the previous year. Bus mean distance between failure was 4,216 miles in February, up 7.8% from a year ago. The 12-month average mean distance between failure fell to 3,938 miles, a drop of 2.1%. I should also mention that obviously this extraordinarily high heat this early in the year is usually not a good thing to happen to a transit system. Over the weekend, however, our performance was relatively good. The air conditioning in the buses. The reports were that we had very few buses that had to be taken out of service for bad air conditioning, and we had similarly good performance on the train side. In terms of number of buses taken out of service for other problems, it was a little high over the weekend, but it still was, I think, extremely good performance for being hit this badly this early in the year. Paratransit service continues to increase at a rapid pace. Completed trips were up by 19.3% for the month and by 21.5% for the last 12 months. Customer no-shows were 4.35% of scheduled trips, up by 2.7% from a year ago. On a 12-month basis, the percentage of customer no-shows is up by 5.3%. There was also a significant increase in carrier no-shows during February, both on an absolute basis and as a percentage of the scheduled trips. This reflects the learning curve for our newest carriers, and we expect improved performance as they gain more experience over the coming months. Commissioner Page had asked last month about the eligibility requirements for paratransit and whether we were administering those to the letter of the law. You have in front of you a letter that discusses the requirements. We also, I've decided that it would be very timely to ask Mike Fusilli to do a fairly wide-ranging audit of our administration of those standards to make sure that we are not granting eligibility to people that we should not, and also that we're not denying eligibility to the people who should be so recognized.
Yes, Mark.
Well, in reading your letter, I get all the considerations. I certainly wonder if someone doesn't have the mental capacity to navigate the transit system, if that's a handicapped accessibility issue, but others probably know these standards better than I do. I do, however, find your conclusory statement startling. Of those who do complete the assessment, we deny eligibility to 3.3%, which indicates to me that you are not applying the criteria with a very significant level of concern and judgment.
I think just prior to that, there is also a statement that of the people who apply and then are told that they in fact will have to undergo an assessment, there's a fairly significant drop-off in the people that actually show up for the examination. But the reason that after going through the detail, the reason for asking Mike Fusilli to do this audit, in fact, is to discover what the truth and reality is.
I guess that the value of an audit may be significant, but I think that this is the essence of the management of this system, and I wonder if relying on an audit to manage appropriately isn't a little sort of after the fact, among other things. I had another question for you, which was that in your explanation of delays, you mentioned that when a system was running the maximum number of trains, you got delays in the signal system, and I didn't understand your explanation at all, and perhaps this isn't the moment for it, but I would like to understand further what you were talking about.
Well, I'll attempt a very brief explanation. On the New Jersey Turnpike, obviously, there comes a point that we're running very close to the maximum capacity of vehicles on the Turnpike, and it's that point in time when an accident on the other side of the road, you simply have people slowing a bit to look at what's going on. This is a congestion effect. When you are not near capacity, you are in a situation where people can do that. The momentary slowing is such that it can be absorbed and there is no slowdown of the traffic. We have a similar phenomenon on the subway system. The number 4 line, for example, running at full capacity, any blip at all creates a delay which basically propagates itself back up the line. On our lines where we're not running at the peak number of vehicles, a delay like that can basically be absorbed without slowing down the rest of the line. That's the short explanation. I'd be very happy to follow up on that.
I guess I would hope that the observing the traffic on the other side was not a major factor in how you run the trains. And I guess that one of the things that bothers me about the delay statistics that we so painfully put together is that I think that for your ridership, the delay of a particular train is often not of any great significance, but the maintenance of the intervals between trains is. And in my experience, on the 4 and 5, as a matter of fact, you can wait for a long time on a platform for the next train, which would suggest to me that there should be some kind of gap between that train and the one that hasn't been there for a while. And yet when you get onto the train when it finally comes, you can be painfully slow in managing to progress your way down the route. And I'd be very interested to understand better why that's true.
We will put together a memorandum to explain that.
Yes, Mark.
Going back to paratransit accessibility, all of us anecdotally know stories of people who have said, hey, I took paratransit to the theater from home and had a great time, and they took me back and forth, and it was a real breeze, and these people don't look like they have any handicaps or disabilities whatsoever. And it looks like the main loophole is that provision which says, okay, you can take paratransit if you can ride the bus or the subway system, but if you want to go to some other point where the subway system or bus doesn't go, you still get to go by paratransit because that's different. And that seems to be something that you should probably try and work on to see if you can't cut out some of these accessibility people, because accessibility claims, because almost everybody has that problem. You know, the buses and subways don't always go where they. Now, somebody who probably can't get from someplace to someplace but can ride on the buses and subway, I assume that there's some people who legitimately fall in that category. But that seems to be the main loophole that's letting eligibility sort of get a little bit rampant here.
Yeah, and we will take a very close look at that. The basic part of the law, though, says that essentially you have to provide equivalent service, and that's why wherever bus lines or subway lines go, if people who are disabled have to have the ability to go to those locations.
I think that was exactly the point that Mr. LeBeau was making, that to those locations where the rapid transit system provides access, and not necessarily to locations where it does not provide access for any of us.
I think what we're looking for is an explanation of that and why we only have, what was the 3.3% turn down rate. I mean, I don't think any of us quite understand that. So I think we need something back. If one of the commissioners has a better idea than an audit, I'm all for it. But I think that's kind of a low number, or it feels like a low number. And if it isn't, we'd like to know why, and what if it is, and how do we get it up to the appropriate place.
Yeah, I understand.
And is there a mechanism for when somebody gets it and get them out? I mean, I remember one woman standing up in front of us saying she had knee replacement, and she was still using it a year later. And she was much younger than the rest of us, and most of the people I know, after 3 months, they're up and about and they don't need the thing, and here she was a year later. So maybe she had a particular complication, but there must be a way to get people out too. So I think we'd all feel much more comfortable if we understood that, given how much money it's costing the MTA and will cost the MTA if we don't have an appropriate system in place. So would you guys put that on a priority to come back with, please?
Yeah, we certainly will. I mean, this paratransit is now costing us more than bus fuel. It's costing us more than traction power. So
While we're on paratransit, I know I mentioned
Your
it the
favorite
last.
subject.
Yeah, well, I know I mentioned it last month, and I guess I need to follow up. But it would be helpful if you bring to this committee the routing of how we do it, how quickly it comes in, because I've heard horror stories, and I know that you have to compare it against the average time that it takes to go from, say, Staten Island to Brooklyn or Manhattan to the Bronx. If you do it on the subway system, it could take 2 hours, so you only have to match 2 hours. I would just like to understand how quickly the system routes it, how do they determine who gets on what van, and how sometimes on one van you can get someone from the Bronx and Brooklyn or Manhattan. I hear horror stories. I don't know if it's true or not, but the routing way that works would be helpful to get give us a better feel of how that happens.
Yeah, we'll do that as well.
Should we have an actual
Let's just make sure the committee's comfortable that we've asked all the questions we want to have asked, and we have a 50-50 chance of getting some of them right next time. Anybody want to add to the list? We all feel comfortable that at least we try to express the questions the way we wanted to?
presentation?
Yeah, well, I want to make sure to let him have it, get at least something back next time, so we make forward progress. You guys get kind of where the committee is.
Actually, I think the letter that Howard put together was pretty extensive, but obviously there are lots more questions and issues. Do we need an actual presentation on some of these matters?
No, we will do that.
Since we
next
now
time.
have more time on this committee, on the clock, maybe it would be good to bring the appropriate people back to talk to us about some of this. And I fear with the proposed service cuts that this problem is only going to be exacerbated. The good news.
Crime, there were 158 major felonies in March 2009, down 14 or 8.1% from March 2008. Year-to-date, major felonies are down 5.2%. Robberies increased by 5 or 8.2% in March and are up by less than 1% for the year. The safety results are mixed this month. The subway customer accident rate was up nearly 50% for the month of January. About three-quarters of the increase were slip, trip, fall incidents resulting from bad weather during the month. January of 2009 was a fairly tough month with respect to snow and ice. January in 2008 was a very comparatively relatively mild month. At last month's meeting, we closed the books on 2008, showing an improvement of 4.6% for this indicator compared to 2007. But because of the poor results in January 2009, the 12-month rolling average is now up only 0.9% compared to a year ago. On the bus side, a 48% spike in the bus collision injury rate in January was also the product of bad weather, with two-thirds of the increase in injuries traceable to two collisions and icy road conditions. But despite the bad weather, the other bus safety indicators all improved for the month. The employee lost time accident rate was up 18.5% in February, but the 12-month average still shows a decrease of 2.3% compared to last year. And subway fire statistics continue to move in a favorable direction. The number of confirmed fires was down 10% for the month of February and by 15% over the last 12 months. In February, all fires except one were categorized as being low or average in severity. Finance, preliminary February farebox revenue was $227.9 million, which was 0.1% below budget. The average non-student fare in February 2009 was $1.341. Non-reimbursable expenses for depreciation and OPEB were lower than budget by $9 million in February. Ridership, average weekday subway ridership was 5.1 million in February, down 0.4% from 2008, while average weekend subway ridership was 5 million, up 0.1% from last year. February local bus ridership averaged 2.3 million on weekdays, up by 2.7% from 2008. Average weekend ridership increased by 4.2%. Weekday express bus ridership was up 2.2% from last year. Average weekday paratransit ridership increased by 25.6% in February compared to 2008. We've also had a early look at financial results for March 2009. Farebox revenue was under budget by $4.4 million, or 1.7%, in part due to a major snowstorm on March 2nd. After correcting for weather, results for the first 3 months are fairly consistent, about 1% below budget for subway, mostly due to lower than expected weekday ridership, and close to budget for bus. On the expense side, preliminary results for March were under budget by $6.8 million, or 1.4%. Fringe benefit costs below budget contributed to the underrun on the labor side, while traction power and bus fuel expenses were favorable on the non-labor side. On the capital program, through February, New York City Transit committed $489.9 million to awards and design starts. The commitment level represents 74% of the year-to-date plan. As mentioned last month, the shortfall is a result of committing only a portion of the 2009 in-house capital track and switch program in January due to a partial release of FTA funds for the project. That completes the operating report.
Mark.
You know, we tend to criticize you and cast some asparagus on the some of your problems, but like eligibility standards for paratransit, or the decline in on-time performance, and the increase in the decline in mean distance between failures. But the crime and the fire statistics are really quite extraordinary, and as a result of very concerted efforts on your part and the agency's part in having the number of fires decline remarkably and the crime statistics decline regularly. We have always said to everybody who appears in uniform at these meetings that you have probably arrived at perfection, but don't lose your focus, because we expect you to improve on perfection. But these are really two great feathers in your cap, I think. So we're going to give you the good with the bad.
I thank you very much.
Norman.
Mr. Howard, the pilot project that you started with the different station agents, the people that were outside on the platforms, you brought, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 people to one meeting. Do you recall that?
Right.
How are they doing? What's the status on that? What's the report on that pilot project?
Yeah, this is the line general managers program, and we started the pilot on the 7 and the L. We have rolled it out now to the IRT Division A, all the numbered lines, and the preliminary results are looking very, very good. Last year, we normally averaged about a 10 percentage point difference in on-time performance between the A division and the B division, and there are significant improvements being made now on the A division or the IRT, and it makes sense that there would be, because before, when there was a single incident, and it was just sort of another incident, and there was nobody that was responsible for looking at everything that had happened or didn't happen on their particular line. With the line general managers out there now, every second basically that is lost is a demerit with respect to line general management. So I'm extraordinarily pleased with the results of the program to date.
When is this pilot over with, so that you can present to us the opportunity to expand it in a more permanent status, if you would?
Yeah, we're actually planning to roll it out to the rest of the B division, all the lettered lines, in July of this year. If you look at your on-time performance statistics, once upon a time the 4 was the worst line in the system, and that honor or dishonor is now being taken by the E and the F trains, and I'm very anxious to get line general managers responsible for those two lines as quickly as I can.
Can you bring them to the next meeting with you?
Yeah, I certainly will.
Thank you, brother.
Any additional questions? You gave me a very nice segue, Norman, into saying that if we don't get the support from Albany that we need, we are going to have to turn the clock back on so many of these important improvements that both you and Mark touched on. So I am hoping that is not the case.
The procurement agenda this month includes 19 actions in the book totaling $83.1 million in expenditures. I ask for your approval of these actions.
Can I have a motion? Any questions? Andrew.
On the Mother Clara Hale Depot item, will the existing depot be used throughout the length of the reconstruction, or will those buses be shifted to another depot?
Those buses have already been relocated.
They have?
The bulk of them went to Amsterdam Depot, which we reopened. Amsterdam, though, has relatively small capacity. Once you get to 80 or 85 buses, you're sort of pushing the envelope, and so others were distributed to the other adjacent depots.
Mr. Roberts, the articulated bus contract, can you just sort of, I'm trying to read the staff summary, and I think it says that we're now going to non-competitive bidding. Is that something we always, I mean, we saw this bus. I'm a bit confused between the conversation we had last month about the different buses being laid in this. I know they're two different things, but if there's some way you can clarify it, I appreciate that.
Yeah, what we had, and there's another action item.
We're not quite on that.
Oh, I thought we were on procurement, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, that's an action item. Could we stick with procurement just for a second,
Sure.
and let's finish that up?
Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. Any other additional questions? Stanley?
I think Commissioner Kay is referring, there is a procurement item to purchase 90 buses
Yeah.
for the Nova buses, the
Correct.
diesel
Oh, I'm sorry.
articulated buses. So that's the question.
Thank you.
Talking about the other one.
If you recall, we had attempted to negotiate, we've had a need for articulated buses for a long time. We had attempted to purchase hybrid articulated buses in '08 and failed to achieve negotiations with another supplier over terms and conditions, pricing, and a whole range of issues. Volvo, who owns what used to be Nova Bus, has an articulated bus, and we were successful in negotiating with that. They're the only ones who have a structurally qualified articulated bus. We've never purchased a low-floor articulated bus, and they have a model that is low-floor. It has been structurally qualified in terms of passing the shaker table tests that we've done, and this is the reason it's sole source, and the provision we're doing the purchase under is to test both a new design and a new manufacturer and source of supply, because they've never provided this bus to us.
So is 90 buses an appropriate testing number?
The reason for a large quantity of buses is because you're not only testing an individual bus and whether it will work, you need to run a lot of buses in service just to see how the bus is impacted over a period of time. But we're also trying to qualify the supplier to make sure that they have adequate capacity to support that bus in operations when you have an ongoing fleet that's operating, needs replacements, needs fixes, and so on and so forth. I mean, you need a certain number in order just to see whether they have that capacity.
They talked me last time into 90 buses as the appropriate test number. I was skeptical, too, but they convinced me of it. The whole point of this, though, is to require the two-thirds vote instead of the majority vote to adopt it.
When you buy small numbers of buses, you wind up not being able to put the bus across the city in all 5 boroughs. You wind up living with a small amount of buses that it's not a good test fleet. The parts are very, very expensive because they only make this small New York order. So when you buy 90 buses, you can spread it out, you can move them to different boroughs, and you won't be paying through the nose for one-of-a-kind type of parts for the next 12 years of the life of the bus.
How much is 60 some odd $1 million? We I believe made, I think, and I know this gets to the piece where Chairman Frasco was talking about the capital plan where we had the funding for this. Is there funding for the 60 million?
Both in MTA bus and in the TA, yes.
Subject to the action item in today's agenda. There is money in the capital program. It has to be reprogrammed from other buses to these buses. That will be an action item.
And it has to be reprogrammed because CPRB never approved it?
Because the last version of the financial plan, of the capital plan, excuse me, from a year ago, actually reduced the number of articulated buses based on what we were thinking at that time. But now that...
So this goes above what we had in our capital plan, and later you're going to ask for an action item to make changes to it?
yes.
Well, the reason we pulled the money for the articulated buses way down was at that point in time the only supplier we had was New Flyer.
Right.
And you recall that they only wanted to give us a 2-year structural warranty. And they wouldn't budge off of that. That was their, their read of the duty cycle in New York City.
Right, and so as a result of that, and
Yeah, so we
made sense to do that.
Yeah,
we use those savings to balance our capital plan for the year. I'll reserve this comment for the next question, more for the next piece.
Right, okay.
This was due to the success of those buses, because New Flyer had such orders from outside New York that they didn't have to give us more than 2-year warranty.
That's true as well. Yeah. Why come to New York with it, which has basically been the graveyard of a lot of bus models? If if your production line is full from cities, this is. Everybody have mentioned this to the committee before. In 1983, we sent some people to a bus maintenance conference, and people at the bus maintenance conference asked our guys if we were having any trouble with our 1973 flexible buses, and they were having structural problems. And the answer was, yes, we have had those problems. We have a fix, which we will send out to you, a bunch of brackets that you weld under the chassis, but those are problems occurred in the first year that those buses were in service in New York City, which led to one of Robert's rules of transit, which is 1 year in New York City equals 10 years in Cincinnati, basically, as far as stress is concerned.
That works for humans, too, I think.
Not at all.
Joe, what happened to those Mercedes articulated buses?
Like the Volvo buses, we have convinced Volvo to come down and build a plant in Plattsburgh, New York, which that's where we'll be getting our buses from. The Mercedes bus, we've spoken to Orion, who the parent company is Daimler Chrysler. We've spoken to them, and we've asked them to bring their factories, because they build Orions in upstate New York, convert one of those lines to a Mercedes articulated bus. So we're working with the company right now on trying to convince them to do that. They want to see if there's a market here. And we're a big buyer. If these buses will replace buses that are at or beyond their 12-year useful life, and the articulated buses take some beating because they have more PPG, as we say. They carry more people per gallon than any other bus that we own. And the buses are in a really, really rough duty cycle.
Yeah, these.
Andrew won't let you do anything in Plattsburgh unless you sell it.
Okay.
Yeah, these buses also have 3 doors, which, given our movement into bus rapid transit, will decrease dwell time and increase speed over the route significantly.
But I don't want to pass over this another bus to see. I just don't want the committee to lose sight. There's another bus that we've tested. It's the Mercedes bus. That if we can get a build in Plattsburgh, that will even be another upgrade over what we're now buying. I mean, that was a great bus. We're hoping that we can. And the trick is, like everything else we do at the MTA, we try to get it made in New York State.
Right.
If they would,
was in test on Staten Island, and Staten Island's
Right,
service,
right. We had the double
great
decker.
bus.
We
It is a
had,
great
too.
bus. So there's more better coming if we can work out.
If we can convince these manufacturers to come here to build it in the U.S. and yes, build it in, Stanley's been working with them to build in New York State. We try to get everybody to come to New York State.
Well, last time we suggested also if you can get Mercedes interested, you should try and reach out to Ferrari. Maybe they should do something.
So you're gonna purchase 90 buses for $60 million, and if it doesn't work, and it doesn't pass the test of New York City streets, we're out to $60 million.
We have already put these buses on a shaker table, and we've run them on a shaker table. Every bus cracks in New York City. What we try to do is put the bus on a shaker table and avoid as much as that as possible. It's impossible to, right now, with where the current things are. Every bus does crack. But by putting it on a shaker table, we know where to weld gussets and brackets and extra welds and change the stress points. But we have already done that with this bus, and we already operate this bus 60 days in New York City with no problems whatsoever.
So, Joe, my question is sort of like, if this company that's coming in has the opportunity to perhaps replace most of the, if not the entire fleet in New York City
Of articulated
buses, and probably do some other stuff in the future, why wouldn't they say, okay, instead of giving us $60 million, we'll negotiate with you, you give us $30 million, because I'm going to have the opportunity to do this contract for you and keep this service up to speed. Why? That's the part I don't understand. Why are we dumping $60 million with someone that we're more or less experimenting with?
In terms of bringing them on to ensure that we're going to get quality buses, the way the contract is designed, they're building 2 pilot buses, which will be delivered in the fall. We will run those buses through more extensive tests once they're built, and then they won't proceed with the production order until they've passed those tests satisfactorily.
Are those
So
buses
the
free, the
schedule-
2 pilots?
No, they're not free. What they've done is, on their dime, they've run those buses through the structural test to qualify, but you're not going to attract the bus manufacturer to build a plant here and do all that they have to do to be in the game for the long term unless you're paying for a bus. Bus manufacturers don't have that kind of money just to invest.
Norman
It's a
Andrews
tough
says that
industry.
if this 60 or 90 bus test doesn't work out, we can always sell our used buses from this test to Cincinnati.
No, and the reason why I say this is because there are some agencies in the city and in the state that get certain types of vehicles, and it doesn't cost them anything to get it because it's a pilot project. It's a test to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, they don't purchase them, but they will give us, a pilot project. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. But I'm cool. They cool, I'm cool, man.
I think, Stanley, we did do some comparison looking at what other transit systems are paying for these types of buses and deemed that the price actually was pretty fair. Is that correct?
Yep, we always do a cost analysis. We look at what they're selling those buses at for others. We do a comparison to see what also equipment we put on the bus that aren't on other manufacturers, and this price is a good price for these buses. But in terms of the pilot buses, a lot of the buses, as the chairman mentioned, we've seen these buses because they've given us loaners, which we've driven around, and that's what led us to pursue further discussions with the company to look for a long-term build. But once they're actually manufacturing new buses for us, those we're paying for.
Any additional questions? Okay, there's a Fulton contract on here, Jeff. I want to make sure you're aware of that. Okay, can we vote?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
No on the Fulton contract.
Thank you.
This month, we are also presenting a staff summary to obtain board approval of proposed modification to the bus purchase element of the 2005-2009 capital program. Essentially, this moves money that was moved out of the articulated bus pot back into the articulated bus pot so that we can make this purchase.
Jeff, did you want any additional detail? No, I don't want you to look upset down there.
It's not upset. I just, it's fine. I'll figure it out later. I'm just trying to understand. We had put out a capital plan to get us through this year. We took some savings on the new flyer. By not doing the new flyer, I thought, and there's a lot of different buses that get very confusing, and I don't want to rehash the conversation we just had. We took the savings as a result of not doing the Arctic, or maybe not, and used it somewhere else. We're now going back to the well, and I'm not exactly sure what we're pulling it out of in order to fund the Arctics that I thought at one point we weren't going to do. But I could completely have screwed that up.
Fewer standard and express buses, right? Is that
At the
what's...
bottom of page 103, you can see that the number of buses has gone down slightly because the Arctics are actually more expensive. The funding source for this ultimately is the bus capital program. The bus capital program dollar value is not changing, so in effect we're reallocating within that envelope in order to buy what we now believe we can buy, which a year ago we didn't think we could buy.
Okay.
This doesn't affect the purchase of the new generation of hybrids, does it?
But the fact that we're using buses to buses, is that not what we did last time we passed this amendment?
Offhand, I can't say for sure.
Okay.
Can you go back and just take a look at that?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks.
Any additional questions on that? If not, we'll have a motion. Second? All in favor? Thank you.
Service changes. This month, we're notifying the committee of 3 service changes. The first is a modification to the 4 and 5 service, including the extension during midday hours of the weekday 5 service to Brooklyn College Flatbush Avenue to enhance operational reliability. This extension was the subject of a pilot conducted in the fall of 2008 and is now being made permanent. This is basically something the line general managers came up with. The way the service was operating is the 4 was on a 6-minute headway and it went into Brooklyn. The 5 was on a 10-minute headway. It did not go into Brooklyn. So you had a lot of people getting on and off at Bowling Green to transfer from the 5s to the 4s. The turnarounds of the 5s at Bowling Green to go back north again also caused blips to the service. This standardizes the headways at 8 minutes both ways, and during the pilot, on-time performance was significantly improved by doing this. The second is a revision to the BX. Sure.
Okay. This looks really good. I got a great briefing from Peter. This looks great on paper, but what this means is upper 4-line service gets a real lessening of headways. I mean, an increase in headways. It gets far less frequent service, which, and Peter has explained, when you have a Yankee game, you're going to have to add trains for that eventuality, because you're really cutting Jerome Avenue service by doing this. The other thing is this is based on a premise that if you equalize 2, 3, 4, 5 service, that's a great thing. The point is that the Lexington line is a far busier line than the Broadway line because people on the west side have alternatives and people on the east side do not. So that premise right there is not necessarily a good one. It's great maybe for scheduling trains, but it's not so great for the people that need to ride the trains. Just throwing that out.
Yeah, I don't understand why the headway is 8 rather than 6.
I'm sorry. Why the
overall headway, you said you merged the two of them, but okay, so the headway is, instead of 10 and 6, it's 8. But why did you shoot for the 6?
Well, it's a question of phasing the trains in and capacity basically on the line, and that would provide, if we pushed everything to 6, that would provide considerably more service than is required out there, given the guidelines, and the other piece of it. It's just simply that the trains mesh together, and as I was saying before, any disruption, minor disruption, has a much greater opportunity of being absorbed under this scheme than it otherwise does.
Will the the service on the 4 north of 125th Street be in current guidelines, frequency-wise?
Peter?
Excuse me. Yeah, so it certainly will be within frequency guidelines. We will continue to monitor in terms of loading guidelines. We believe what will happen and what we saw start to happen during the pilot is that currently the 4s are more heavily loaded because all the people going to Brooklyn along the east side of Manhattan are waiting for the 4 trains, or most people. Some people will end up transferring at Bowling Green, as President Roberts mentioned. That should even out. So the additional 5s will carry additional riders, but it is something we'll continue to monitor. We are also, as part of this, using some of the resources that formerly were on the 4 service to provide gap trains during the midday, so that if there are disruptions in service, we'll have an extra train and crew out there to fill in that as well, and we believe that will help with the reliability in the midday also.
From Woodlawn all the way down?
Right, one at each end.
Thank you.
The second is a revision to the BX12 select bus service to operate all BX12 SBS buses to Bay Plaza, Co-op City during the summer. This change is being made in response to issues identified last summer when the BX12 SBS was introduced. And lastly, we're modifying Manhattan bus service in response to changes that the New York City Department of Transportation will be implementing on Broadway beginning on Memorial Day weekend. Segments of 6 routes that currently operate on Broadway will be moved to 7th Avenue. The service change will also eliminate the M6 route, implement increased service on the M1 and an extension of the M20 to compensate in part. In combination with the physical changes being made by NYC DOT, we expect the overall effect of these changes on traffic flow and bus operations to be positive.
That's really what I wanted to comment on, and no disrespect meant to my city board members, but should we be editorializing that the effects of closing off large swaths of Broadway is going to be positive for the traffic environment? I don't know why we're saying that. We should adjust our buses, of course, to the necessity of Broadway being closed, which I think is going to impact lots of passengers who can't use subways and will no longer be able to get to Union Square. But why are we saying this is going to be positive on traffic flow? We don't know that yet.
Well, the city has run simulations that show that, and I think anybody would, if we were starting from the beginning and you put in a grid system on any city, and then took a major route, and cut a diagonal across the grid, you were setting up limitations on the timing of green traffic lights. And you're setting up, disruptions in the flow in the grid system.
No doubt Broadway is a problem, but when you have hypothetically 5 southbound avenues and you cut that to 4, that's going to impact traffic on the other ones. I don't think you have to be a genius to realize that. So I just don't think we should be actually editorializing on it. We should just adjust our buses to what we have to.
Notwithstanding the comments just made, as well as the description in the book about why in fact we were doing this, I believe, and I'm trying to get the numbers while we talk, but I'll reserve that for after, is that there was actual evidence that this would increase traffic flow, and that was the sole reason and main reason why in fact we were going to be closing that section of Broadway. So I don't believe it's an editorialized. I think that was the intent, and I think there was information available to support that intent, as best as any traffic modeling information can provide.
Are there any additional comments on the service changes? Commissioner Page and I, who are heavy users of the 4 and 5, are going to be watching this very intently. Howard.
I look forward to the scrutiny.
Thank you. And now, is it true that we're going to have a brief presentation on rats?
We're going to have a brief presentation on rats. I had asked that we start this by releasing about 12 in the room, but saner heads.
I apologize. This is my doing. So I went to one of the stations and saw an awful lot of rats, 4-legged kind. And I asked Howard to prepare this for us.
I'd like to form a pilot that anyone that we see throwing trash on the tracks be given a pet rat to take home with them.
Yeah, particularly food. The presentation is going to be made by Eric Barthel, who has been in the car equipment division for more than 25 years. The way he got into rats, however, is that I have a program by which I take young managers, middle managers, and bring them up on a temporary basis to my office as special assistants for generally about 90 days. And during his time in that position, Eric became our rat expert, and he also spent a lot of time on the debate as to whether the new B division cars should be 60 feet or 75 feet, and you'll be provided more information on that later. But for right now, here are the rats.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Good morning. As Mr. Roberts said, last year while I was in the capacity of Special Assistant to the President, I was asked to look at the rodent problem in the subways and take a look at it and see how it was being handled. As soon as I got the assignment, I initially called Peter Bass, who is the MTA's Director of Environmental Agency-wide Compliance. And Peter Bass suggested that we contact the New York City Department of Health rodent expert, Dr. Bobby Corrigan. And Dr. Bobby Corrigan is here with us today. He's to my left in the third row. And next slide. Thank you. These are some of the resources of the New York City Department of Health. They have a brand new rodent information website, which is a very useful resource. Dr. Corrigan chairs the Mayor's Rodent Control Task Force, which meets, I believe, on a weekly basis with all the major New York City agencies. And Dr. Corrigan chairs that. And Dr. Corrigan also teaches the Rodent Control Academy, which is a 3-day training class offered to all New York City agency employees and deals with rodent control methods and management. And New York City Transit has sent 10 stations and track personnel to the Rodent Academy. This model I have in front of me is not the typical New York City rat. The Norway rat or brown rat usually weighs in at about 1 pound. It's 16 inches long, and the average female produces 4 litters in her lifetime, with the average litter size of approximately 6 pups. Rats live in colonies within 65 feet of their nest, and most city rats only live for 5 to 6 months. They feed at night, and the exact subway system or city population is unknown. Now, with that type of productivity, one might ask why there isn't an overrun or an explosion of rats. And the fact is that most city rats only live for 5 to 6 months. A few lucky ones do live up to a year old, and most rats in the city succumb to stress, deadly battles with other rats, erratic food supplies. They succumb to extermination campaigns, cars, and a very small number are eradicated by predators like hawks, owls, dogs, and cats. And this information is from the New York City Department of Health website, some myths and facts. Myth: rats the size of cats live in New York City. The fact is that most rats in our area weigh no more than 1 pound. When a rat is scared, it will fluff up its fur and look bigger to scare away its enemies. Myth: rat cities are in our sewers and subway system. The fact is only small pockets of rats live in the New York City sewers and subways. Most rats live in burrows at ground or basement level. And contrary to public perception, the subways are not rat havens, nor are they the preferred real estate for rats. And you may ask why, and one of the reasons subways is not the preferred real estate is there is not a plentiful supply of nutritious food, and the rat's natural habitat is soil, and that is not available to them in the subway system. Myth, city rats are immune to poison, and the fact is today's poisons work fine, but only if rats eat them. When garbage is accessible, rats don't take the bait. And myth, cats, dogs, hawks, and other animals help control city rats. They may kill an occasional rat, but they can't keep up with the rodents' breeding rates, and only people can make a difference. Dr. Corrigan teaches about integrated pest management, which emphasizes the importance of sanitation programs and building actual physical barriers to prevent rats from entering areas and the system. And integrated pest management also covers other non-chemical approaches to managing rat populations. Presently, New York City Transit performs track and station cleaning on a regular basis. The image on the upper right-hand corner is a team of track workers that are bagging garbage. This work is performed only under strict flagging protection. The image on the upper left is a station platform being prepared for platform washing, and that's where a direct water connection is available. The bottom image is of our mobile wash unit, which is a pressurized cleaning system that is driven to the station location to perform track cleaning. And also station cleaning consists of sweeping and picking up garbage. We also distribute bait in packets throughout the system and install the placards that you see on the left-hand side. I have a packet here of bait. It's like a packet of M&Ms or Skittles. And what Dr. Corrigan has pointed out to us is that once these are placed in the system, they easily and quickly become coated with dirt and dust and become less attractive to rats, which would prefer to eat on litter or discarded food in the system. So therefore, Dr. Corrigan has recommended that we change our baiting protocols and conduct a pilot program using a bait station as depicted in this image to more effectively deliver the bait to the rats. This is the inside view of a bait station, which has a cover and is weatherproof. And the rats will enter this. They will eat the green rodenticide. They will leave the bait station, and they usually will die within 5 days. And the rodenticide can be replenished as the rats eat it. This image is of a refuse room, and Dr. Corrigan has recommended reinforcing our refuse rooms. This is where our garbage is staged for pickup. And reinforcing these rooms, some of the methods of reinforcing are plugging holes in the walls or holes where there is piping in the room, and also to install door guards on the bottom of the doors so that the rats will not enter the refuse rooms. The pilot implementation has begun in March. Franklin Street on the number 1 line was installed with these new bait stations on the roadbed and outside the platform station limits. And similarly, we have some proposed stations that we will roll out this pilot over the next 6 months. Bait stations are more effective when they're placed in areas that are kept clean. As Dr. Corrigan teaches at the Rodent Academy, if you manage refuse, you manage pests. So therefore, a critical component of this pilot will be keeping our stations clean and litter-free. We have an ongoing public awareness campaign regarding littering in the system, and we hope that this ongoing public awareness will be effective in reducing the levels of litter in the subway system. Station assessments using this form depicted here were performed by Dr. Corrigan's team to establish baseline profiles of candidate stations. Follow-up inspections and assessments will be performed over the next 6 months, and the data collected will be evaluated to determine the effectiveness of this pilot program. This image is of a ceramic mosaic of an Australian water rat at the 81st Street Museum of Natural History station, and is the only authorized rat in the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very enlightening. Gives me an idea. Maybe we're all supposed to fluff up our fur and go up to Albany and scare a few people.
Connie is now going to do a brief presentation on the 96th Street station, which I think is a excellent example of how a station should be designed and constructed.
Except it's where we saw the rats during the day. It had nothing to do with nighttime. They were eating, munching in the morning. So there was something wrong with some of what we heard today.
No, I think they do most of their foraging at night, but I don't think that they are completely inactive during the daytime.
These rats had a lot of motivation. We saw dozens of them. Yeah, so we should kill them. Go and shoot them with a machine gun. They were enough to kill with a machine gun. It was unbelievable.
All right, I'm here to talk to you about the 96th Street station on the IRT, which is undergoing a major rehabilitation. This was the condition before we started. It's a section of road with a median down the middle and entrances at 96th Street and 94th Street from the sidewalk, and those are circled in red from below. And in plan view, you see there are 2 island platforms, local and express trains alight at each platform, and you can see in yellow the station entrances at 94th Street on the left and 96th Street at the top. But more interestingly, the cross-section of the station shows that as you enter at the sidewalk, you actually walk down 2 flights of stairs. The first flight takes you down to platform level, but you can't get to the platforms. Then you go down 1 more level to an underpass, cross the underpass, and then come up to the platform. So you go down 2 flights of stairs and up 1 flight of stairs in order to get to a platform to get on a train. Mm-hmm.
Should be stated that that's only at the 96th Street end.
Okay. Then, which is the main entrance. So the original scheme, this was bringing the station, making it accessible. So elevators are going in, 3 elevators. That would take you down to the lower level, and also an escalator would take you down the 2 flights to the lower level, and then elevators back up to each of the island platforms. That was the original scheme. But in order to achieve that, the ridership at this station is high, and you need to do major excavation. So we're doubling or tripling the width of the space below ground. This is all rock, so a lot of hard rock excavation, a very expensive project to essentially take what we had before, make it accessible, and provide the kind of space that you needed for our passengers. So we, our design manager came up with a new scheme. What she suggested is that instead, let's widen the median, which was 22 feet wide, widen it to 54 feet, which means moving the traffic lanes. We retain 3 traffic lanes on each side, and put in a head house in the median with elevators that go straight down to each of the platforms. We would close the sidewalk entrances, and thereby we're able to narrow the sidewalks. I think there were 24 feet, narrow it down to 15 feet. You have the same capacity in the sidewalk because now you don't have the stairways blocking the people walking. In plan view, the red dash lines show what the original configuration was of the curb lines. And you can see the new head house, which is down closer to 95th Street in blue there. And also we're taking that additional median area and making it into a park. Worked closely with the Parks Department. This is a view looking south toward 95th Street of the completed station. It's a rendering of when the station will be completed. Go ahead, Tom. Just a comparison of the original scheme. You can see it was about $120 million, and the revised scheme has cut close to $30 million off of that. We've also cut the duration down substantially for the work, and the number of diversions for our customers are substantially reduced. So all around, this is a really smart move for us. This is the project team. The design manager, Shirley Moy, is third from left, and she's here in the audience. Shirley, can you stand up and be recognized? So she's the one who came up with this wonderful idea. Thank you, Shirley. And I'll show you a couple photos of, the construction schedule. You can see the red bar, the station house, is under construction right now. They'd already finished the street work to relocate the traffic lanes. And this shows that. Here's the sidewalk being narrowed as we, move the street closer into the building lines. This is construction going on in that widened median area. Another photo of that construction slabbed over, so this slab becomes the floor of the new head house. These are the arches that have just come in. This is just in the last 2 weeks. In the middle of the night, the first arches came in a week and a half ago at 3 in the morning, and now they're putting up the steel between them. Down below, you needed new columns to support the head house over the platform. So the new columns are the H sections there, and then the original columns are taken out, so you have a more clear platform. The whole station does get a rehabilitation down at the platform levels as well. And this is a rendering of the completed structure. Inside will be nice and modern. And that will be the completed station. Thank you.
Connie, thank you so much. And I want to acknowledge the architect, engineer, Shirley, is it?
Shirley Moy.
Shirley, stand up. Just stand up one more time. There she is back there. We have a lot of very talented women in this organization, and this talented woman saved us $30 million, and we're all very grateful to your innovativeness. That's just great. And Andrew, you're going to enjoy that station, aren't you? Oh, it's not? Okay, all right, good. Any additional questions? Okay, we have a couple of additional special reports here that we'll move through very quickly, if we could.
Section 8 of the agenda includes our regular status report on the AFC program. Also, for information this month, we're presenting a review of our financial results for 2008. On an accrual basis, we closed the year $28.7 million worse than our final estimate, almost entirely due to re-estimates of depreciation and OPEB expenses. On a cash basis, we finished the year $19.7 million better than estimate. Of that amount, $15.4 million reflects favorable timing, while the remaining $4.3 million is a favorable real variance. Finally, Section 9 of this month's agenda provides an update for the committee's information on our new technology bus programs. That completes the report.
Thank you. Any final questions on transit before we move to bus? Okay, Joe, you're on.
Okay, good morning, Madam Chair Fraska and members of the Bus Committee. I'd like to ask the committee to approve the minutes of March 23rd meeting.
Is there a second? All in favor? Minutes approved.
Okay, there are no changes to the work plan this month. Performance highlights to report. Overall service performance continued to be solid. Both AM and PM weekly pullouts and completed trips are all above 99%, both for February and the previous 12 months. MDBF was 39.25 in February. This was down 16% from February 2008. We expect this to happen for the next 2 quarters of 2009, that the MDBF is not going to be as great as it was last year. This is due to the impact by increasing the age of the fleet, as well as our bus hybrid performance, which has been affected by the batteries reaching the end of their useful life. Once we start changing the battery tubs, we expect that the MDBF will improve, and as new hybrids come in to replace buses that are currently 19 years old or older. Safety performance for the previous 12 months was mixed. Overall, our bus collisions were down by 10%, but our bus collision injury rate rose about 6%. And the customer accident rate went up about 33%. Employee lost time accident rate as well went up by 5%. Total ridership for February 2009 was up 1.2% from February 2008, and the 12-month average was up 7.8%. This is notable because last year was a leap year, so total ridership was up, even though we had one less day in the month this year. Some highlights from our February financial statement. February farebox revenue was $0.6 million, or 5.4% better than the adopted budget. For the year-to-date, it's $0.1 million, or 0.6% better than budget. Total non-reimbursable expenses before non-cash adjustments were $10 million better than budget through February. 3 factors contributed to this. One was labor underruns and lower fuel prices reflect real savings. The third factor was timing issues for payments. This includes payments for maintenance, professional services contracts, maintenance materials, insurance, and OPEB. We don't have any action items, competitive procurements, or ratifications this month, but we do have one non-competitive procurement for approval. The non-competitive procurement is to award a contract in the total of $38,600 to Peripheral Dynamics Incorporated to furnish 19 scanning devices. We will use this to support SPEAR, as SPEAR is being rolled out in all the maintenance MTA bus depots. The scanners read cards from the operator's vehicle condition report, and they scan them through these machines. I ask the committee to approve this procurement.
Do I have a motion? All in favor?
I have 3 informational items for this month. First is a service change on the BXM2 route. We are revising the southbound travel path to use 7th Avenue instead of Broadway between Central Park South and 45th Street. This is because of the change in regard to the traffic patterns on Broadway. The second item is included in our work plan. It's the report of MTA Bus Company 2008 unaudited revenue and expenses compared to the 2008 final estimate. These results included in this report were preliminary and reflected information as of April 3rd, 2009. The audited financial statements were presented to the Audit Committee for approval last week. And the last information item is also from our work plan, is our quarterly bus technology program report. This concludes my remarks.
Are there any
You
questions?
You too deserve congratulations for making your operating deficit less worser than historically and better than budget.
Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any additional questions? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thank you.